I think disease education, one way to think of it is in more of a creative campaign that might be better suited for commercial. But another way is like, what is that scientific discussion that we need around the disease education, which feels much more suited to medical capabilities?
Welcome to Transforming Medical Communications, a podcast by MedComms experts. We share medical communications insights and advice from the best and brightest in the industry to find out what they're doing to push our industry forward. Here's your host, Wesley Portegies.
Welcome to Transforming Medical Communications, the podcast where we explore bold concepts shaping the future of medical affairs. Today, I'm here with my colleague, Lynsey Clarke, who is our head of client partnerships. Hi, Lynsey. Welcome to the show. Hi,
Wesley. Good to be here.
Glad to have you. What we're going to talk about today is the divide between medical and commercial. And, is it actually still a divide? Is perhaps the first topic to cover here. But I would like to go down memory lane a little bit. And Lynsey, for you as well, when we started our careers in medical communications, how did this actually look like? Right? So how did that look like for you?
Well, that's an interesting thing to think about, having been in the industry for 25 years. I think if we think right back to the beginning of my career, the separation between medical and commercial teams was really quite siloed. One of the biggest things that really resonates when I think about that is the fact that some of the medical teams were doing no external communications. So the medical function was very much focused on advisor insights, as it still is today, but external communication is probably the thing that pops for me in terms of what has changed most.
So I think it's really interesting looking back at that history, how much has actually changed. And it's I often actually don't really realize it until we have these kind of conversations and look at the past, how close medical and commercial have become. But then at the same time, we still see in here like a lot about these teams looking for better alignment. And it was a key insight from our MedComms landscape survey that we published mid last year, right? Where people were saying that the lack of alignment between medical and commercial is something that really kind of hampers their progress. How are you looking at that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And actually, we do see a lot of variety with different companies. So some companies are using a very collaborative model now, even at the strategic planning point. So objectives are being developed cross-functionally, completely across the organization. And then we still do see teams who are very, very focused in their medical work streams versus commercial. And then there's a group in the middle where we've got, some collaboration, but mostly separate endeavors. So it's really still an evolving space, I think, between medical and commercial.
Yeah. Are there some examples you've seen recently where maybe it was tangible that this alignment wasn't there yet?
Yeah, actually, some really good examples come in the omnichannel space, I think. So we typically have been working with commercial clients over the years in omnichannel. And now with the increase in focus with medical teams in omnichannel, we've had our clients come to us and say, could you actually help us align this work? Because the reality is that all the audiences are the same for everyone, or largely. So we have to think about not oversaturating different audiences by work that medical is doing and then work that commercial is doing. So we actually had clients come to us and say, how can we align this? How can we bring in your medical teams and your commercial teams to make sure that we've got an omni-channel strategy that is not oversaturating and is actually complementing what our audiences need to know?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's a huge challenge that we're facing, right, as an industry, because like you said, in the past, medical affairs wouldn't be really responsible so much for communicating to the outside world like they're really now. So historically, commercial has been driving that. Now, in the meantime, medical affairs really developed as an organization that is actually responsible for a lot of those communications. But then indeed, like how do we make sure it's not overlapping, right? And even if you look more practically from a channel perspective, we're helping more and more clients, for instance, to get onto social media and third-party platforms and have their own medical affairs website and all of these things. So, and most of those things have already been existing for commercial for quite some time. So in other words, the channels are the same. So the real difference now between medical communicating and commercial communicating is, compliance, right? And the intent. And, while this collaboration is getting closer and closer, I'm just wondering, will we ever end up in a situation where those are one and the same things?
I think that would be certainly something that's quite difficult to imagine just from a compliance perspective. I think the function of medical and commercial will always have really strong, distinct goals. But there's more opportunity than ever for coordination, to align strategically. So I think while the teams get closer, obviously there's still a distinct function for both.
Is MedComms evolving faster than your team can keep up? You're not alone, and you don't have to navigate it alone. Wesley Portegies, host of Transforming Medical Communications, is offering a limited number of free 30-minute consultancy sessions for medical affairs professionals. Whether it's medical communications, field medical, or medical affairs training, these sessions provide an opportunity to address your real-world challenges, pressure test ideas, and walk away with practical strategic insight for your team. No fluff, just strategy. Follow the on-screen link or in the show notes to book your free session now.
Yeah, and obviously I was exaggerating here a little bit, but you never know, right? Because 15 years ago, we had to sign a document saying you will never work with commercial because you chose to work with medical, or the other way around, right? And now, we have a lot of discussions where, specifically with medical affairs, where people come to us and say, hey, listen, commercial developed this omnichannel journey. They kind of handed it over to us now, and they would like us to use a similar framework, and asked us how to make it more medical, right? So how do we go about that? So it comes really, really close, yet not the same, or yet not fully compatible. And so what do you feel are productive areas where they can actually align?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, omnichannel is definitely one of those. I think if we think about medical omnichannel execution and commercial completely separately, we do risk things looking uncoordinated for target audiences. So there needs to be good alignment. But one thing that has never changed, I think we've got better at it, is really identifying what the disease education is needed in any space, and really leaning on the medical team and their expertise to do that. So I think that's always been a place where commercial and medical can work together.
So you feel that the disease education part is probably where the biggest alignment is between expertise and execution?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it can be done in either function. Like we're saying, commercial does a lot of disease education. Medical is also very well placed to do it. But that is certainly a place where collaboration matters.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because recently we had quite a few discussions around that topic with actually a few different clients. And it's interesting because on one day I would speak with a medical person saying we want to run this program. And the next day I would speak with a medical person saying, no, that's owned by commercial. So it's indeed one of those areas that seems to be caught in the middle. And perhaps I think you're right that might be one of the first places of alignment where medical and commercial can really fully engage with each other to bring that out to the world.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think disease education, one way to think of it is in more of a creative campaign that might be better suited for commercial. But another way is what is that scientific discussion that we need around the disease education, which feels much more suited to medical capabilities. So you can find aspects of disease education that would fall into either category, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I mentioned a little bit earlier in this conversation, it's also about the intent, right? And before I started the agency, I worked on the commercial side, so I was in a marketing function. And I've always felt like even on the commercial side, like, of course, you want to underpin everything by science. Of course, in a way, in my mind, which probably might sound a little crazy to some people, there shouldn't be a difference between the two, because like you don't want to just sell something with a nice shiny brochure. Obviously, we're talking about people's lives, about important matters, and as a result, it needs to be supported properly by science, and you need to communicate and explain and educate that science in a way that simply makes sense and is the truth, right? So, and that's why, ultimately there might be some hopes for these functions getting even closer together, or being able to communicate as a cohesive team.
Absolutely. And, it's one of our ways that we structure ourselves in light of the collaboration that our medical and commercial teams have happening on the client side. So if you think back to the example I gave about the commercial team and the medical teams wanting to align omnichannel, we now have two teams, our medical team and commercial team, really mirroring the way that our clients are working so that they can rely on us to find the alignment that they need. And so we're breaking down some of our own walls that we might have had between commercial and medical. So we're sort of following suit with our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
or potentially the other way around. We don't like to follow suit. We like to push the envelope first. So perhaps it's a chicken and egg situation.
Always be trailblazers, right?
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, it's just a matter of perspective. No, I see totally what you mean. And I think it's very exciting what's to come. And, as agency partners, I think there's so much we can do to help our clients coordinate this better and harmonize some of these collaborations.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, thank you for being here today, Lynsey. I really had a lot of fun talking about this interesting topic with you. Looking forward to keep trailblazing on that.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Wesley. I do think we have to recognize that companies are at different stages in all aspects. So some companies are very much earlier in their omni-channel journey. They're very much earlier in the setting up of their medical team. So it's really always been a continuum in pharma. So those that are bigger pharma that are on the more front edge, and then those that aren't. So I think for us, it's really just helping to support clients at every stage that they're in.
That's actually a really good topic, and especially if I look at some of the really, really small companies we're working with, sometimes there is no medical affairs department, right? And there are situations where it's the chief commercial officer being our contact, still needing medical information or medical communications, right? But the team might not even be in place yet. And it's probably led with commercial when it comes to the company growing, from what I've seen. And then slowly but surely, they start building up the medical affairs function. And I agree with you. And the further they grow, the more that alignment is going to be important. But ultimately, it kind of starts as one, which is an interesting observation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Transforming Medical Communications is brought to you by MedCom's experts. To find out more about MedCom's experts and how we create some of the most cutting-edge medical communications programs anywhere in the world, visit www.medcoms-experts.com. And then make sure to search for Transforming Medical Communications in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at MedCom's Experts, thanks for listening.